five of us here, right?
Yeah. Go on, Sridhar, you were saying something. Yeah.
See, go ahead.
So, Lakshman, we have five of us in Can site.
Okay.
So, and other people are joining from other places.
Already spoke the much.
Okay. Would you like me to wait for 2-3 minutes or shall I go ahead?
We'll go ahead, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Lakshman.
Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon. I think it's the first time I'm talking like this to the people at Can site. It's always nice to have this opportunity. I would like to thank you for that. The topic is one on making presentations. Of course, the present context, it is always making computer presentations. This is something which has been dear to my heart for a long time. And many years ago, in fact, like more than a couple of decades ago, when computer presentations were just making an appearance on the scene, I sort of looked up a lot of material about it and put together this presentation. And over the years, there have been little modifications to suit some of the other newer features that came on in the computer presentations. So what I plan to do is to give you some general ideas about what the goals of a presentation are and the principles of presentations, how you should make them. And of course, the crux of the presentation is in making of a slide. There's a lot of science behind how you make a slide. I would like to make this presentation very informal. And if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. You can also give your suggestions, your comments, even your critique, because I think there's a lot of learning, and the learning is always both ways. It's never one way. And you will find that one of the points I'm going to make as we go along is that a presentation must be a two-way communication. It can never be a monologue. So your comments and your views are most welcome. And as in any profession, communication is a very important part. You communicate when you teach. And as doctors, when we deal with our patients, we educate them. And in hospitals, you may have information going through about various things that's done in a hospital or in a lab, for example, and you have standalone kiosks. And of course, there are situations where you can even have interactive sessions. And all that can be done through a PowerPoint presentation. The main goals anybody has in any communication, any presentation, is to grab somebody's attention. The first thing is that the audience who's listening to you must be listening to you. It's as simple as that. And of course, you have some messages to give, and then you give it in such a way that they retain those messages. These are the three simple goals of a presentation. It's both an art and science. It's never just art. It's never just science. It's while some people do have a degree of natural gift in giving good presentations, most of good presenters, most of the people have learned it, and it is very easy to learn, provided we sort of understand and do some of the things that we're going to discuss in the next 45 minutes or so. Practice is very important. I think like in everything else in what we do, repeatedly doing something makes you better at it. And if you really like a presentation somewhere, you sort of come out with a good feeling, but also a feeling that, wow, this guy is really natural at this. And it is never true. You'll find that that guy who has given you a good presentation would have worked at it for months, if not years, before he would have developed the gift or the skill of giving a good presentation. Now, various ways can be used to communicate and put across certain points. Speech alone is always there, and I've always wondered how our politicians, with nothing to say, with having nothing to say, hold on to somebody's attention for hours together. Of course, it's a different matter whether they have the person's attention or not. Perhaps they don't have the person's attention. Of course, the good old times, we all had our own schools, blackboards where people would write on it. And we really appreciate some of our teachers having very good drawing skills and, very good handwriting, how they could easily do things. And we remember people who would use both hands, simultaneously to write something on the board and things like that. Very impressive. You also give handouts along with the talk that you're giving. You can expect, your audience to read what is written on the handouts and make a correlation and understand better. But communication came into its own when you could put graphics, pictures, and words onto some medium. We started with the usual so-called glass slides, which we were all using before the times of the computer. And then you then had more and more sophisticated and colorful graphs. And now, of course, we're in an era of multimedia. Okay. And so the computer has come to its own in terms of giving you the opportunity to use multimedia. But the trick to understand here is that how good we are at using the multimedia, how not to do certain things. That's more like it. So I'm going to, during the course of this presentation, I'm going to show you several things that are not done. And of course, to make it, to drive home a point, as it were, I'm showing exaggerated versions which may or may not happen in real life. But believe you me, some of the examples I've given have happened in presentations. And so it's good for us to know how to use the multimedia effectively. All right. Now, if you're looking at the structure of a presentation, certain normal facts you must understand. However fancy your computer is, however fancy your skills are, it cannot make up for a lack of content. So the first thing you must make sure is that you have something to say, and that something that you have to say has substance in it. And there must be a storyboard. What most movie makers or even ad makers call a storyboard. It is a logical sequence. So every presentation, be it for half a minute, be it for 15 minutes or an hour, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So that is called the storyboard sequence. And you will find at the end of this presentation, you will yourself know what the sequence of this particular presentation is. And you must have similar thoughts when you design your presentation to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Setting the tone is a very subjective term to use. But what is meant by this is that you must know your audience before you go to a presentation. Subject may be the same. The title may be the same. Okay. If I want to give you an example in a hospital setting, you may be talking about investigation of a fever, for example, as simple as that. But if your audience is a set of doctors, it will be in one way. If it is predominantly nurses, it will be another way. And if it's predominantly laboratory technicians, for example, in your hospital, it will be a third way. Subject may be the same. And so you set the tone by knowing the audience first, who they are, and try and get the involvement of the audience. So even if you're, the involvement of an audience is a little tougher on online presentations like this, but I usually do it because I break my presentation maybe after 5, 8, or 10 slides, and then either ask questions or invite comments or whatever, so that it's not just a one-sided monologue. But in physical presentations, for example, it's very easy to involve the audience. You just stand there and stop your presentation and ask a question of one of the people in the audience, and that breaks the monotony. And so, as I said in the beginning, good presentations are a partnership. It's definitely not a monologue. That is something we must always understand. Now, imagine lots of, lakhs and lakhs of rupees are spent on advertising shorts, and the shorts may be as what shall I say, as short as 10 seconds or maximum 30 seconds. You won't have any, you don't have an hour to tell that story, the storyboard sequence. but the advertiser has the challenge to make you, give you a point to sell a product. You can imagine the challenge that these guys have, and they succeed at it. They succeed at it. And so we have to understand what they say. And what they say is what is given in the latter half of this message, in this slide. So what you have to know first is to define the messages you have to give. All right. First, you must know what you have to say. Then restrict it to 4 or 5 points. However long your talk may be, we know that the attention span of humans is 20 minutes. We beat it regularly by talking for 40, 45 minutes. And so it's important that we must understand that you have to give them a few points which they tell, which they grab and hold on to. If you have 20 points to give, you can give it in 4 different talks, not all 20 at the same time. And as I did in the beginning, I gave you a summary first. I told you very clearly that in this talk, I'm going to tell you about the goals of a presentation. I'm going to tell you about the principles of making a presentation. And finally, I said, I'll tell you about the principles of slide design. Now, you can already see I have taken the opportunity to repeat it. I started with that message. I am repeating it in this message. You will find that as I go along, I'm going to repeat it again. And so what happens is that the human mind, the audience's mind, perceives that this is what is going to be said. You're anticipating what I'm going to say. And because of that anticipation in your mind, this has been worked out in psychology. Because of this anticipation, you are attentive. That is one process of grabbing your attention. And the second thing is that when I say, you retain it better because of the anticipation that you have about what I'm going to say. Now, it's not difficult for you, this may be about presentation, but tomorrow I may talk about rectal bleeding or upper GI bleeding or whatever, or trauma. Wherever it is, you can have a similar principle and keep making those points and give them a summary first and repeat it. For a physical audience, it doesn't apply to this particular presentation, but for a physical room, you even have principles of design of where people should sit for optimal listening and comprehending principles or rules. Okay, so if you have a screen there and the podium where the person stands to speak and an audience here, you see that the extreme point here. Can you see? I hope you see. Can you see my pointer on the screen?
Yeah, sir.
Okay. So you can see that the pointer from there, the person sitting in this extreme corner should be able to see the end of the screen. This is for, did you hear a sound as well?
Yes, sir, we could.
You did, thanks, yeah. So you see that this is the direction of the English script, for example. So in giving a talk with English letters, the design must be that the podium must not come here at this point where the screen is obscured. And the second thing, that's the point I was making. The guy sitting in the extreme end should be able to see that. And that is the area of movement of the speaker. He should not walk beyond this triangular area. He should not walk somewhere here, which means that he doesn't obscure the vision of the person sitting in one extreme corner of an audience. It's as simple as that. And if you have a lecture in Arabic where the letters go from right to left rather than left to right, then that would be your presentation. So it's quite simple. Sounds logical when you say it, but just imagine all of you would have given lectures in so many places, very many places. All right, this principle is not adhered to. So whenever I go and give a talk somewhere, I try to see if I can change, if possible. Sometimes I don't succeed, but if possible, I try to make sure that this particular rule is followed. All right, and the speaker's mannerisms are very important. Okay, there must be some degree of dress code. Need not always be in a suit, for example, but there must be a degree of formality, particularly when you go for scientific presentations. Standing with your feet slightly apart and erect exuding as it were confidence. Even if you're very nervous inside, your heart is racing, try and see if you can look confident about what you say. And an eye contact is very important. If you stand at the podium, stiff, bent over, not looking at anybody, looking fidgeting, looking at the roof or the window or the door or something and talking, nobody is going to listen to you. They will not have you will not have the audience's attention. So relaxed, feet slightly apart, move if you have to within that area that I had specified earlier, and have an eye contact. Even if you're addressing 2,000 people, look at the front row of people. You know, the audience may be very big, but then you have one row or two rows of people sitting in front of you at the very front of the auditorium. Have an eye contact. You talk as if you're talking to one person. And believe you me, that will take away your stage fear also if you have one. So if you think that 100 people or 500 people or 2,000 people are listening to you, you may feel nervous. If you stand there and think that you're talking to your friend who is in the audience, that I always tell the beginners, think that you're talking to a friend who's sitting in the front row. Keep looking at that friend. You know, it may be an imaginary friend, but doesn't matter. Look at that person, who take him as your friend, even though you've not met him. Have an eye contact, and you'll find that your talk will be much better. Hands can be waving around. You can have it clasped in front of your feet, in front of your body, but never go into the pockets. Hands should never go into the pockets. Now, this is the slightly non-vegetarian material I have in all my presentations. I don't put, in any of my, I don't put any of these quotes in my presentations. But in this particular thing, I put this up because I wanted to impress upon you that having quotes breaks the monotony. Many people recommend it. But also remember that it can sometimes be objectionable and it may be unacceptable to certain audiences. So something like this, that is very straightforward. A very bold surgeon is the one who realizes that his patient takes all the risks. Okay, people may laugh at it. The second one may be taken with a degree of trepidation by some people. So be careful when you do quotes at all. So what I do is I never give quotes in my presentations, but I have something and in the thank you slide. Okay, and so I break the monotony. I don't necessarily use quotes, but I break the monotony in my scientific presentations by basically asking questions or have a riddle or something like that. And so that does the job. This is the other one. Okay. I actually saw this in a scientific presentation and I put it up to tell you what not to do. All right. What not to do. And, if somebody is talking about in a quiz or a funny political presentation, political subject, it may be acceptable, but definitely this is not acceptable in a scientific presentation. And my stress today is on scientific presentations. Okay. And the other very important point about scientific presentations is the time. We are given maybe 6 minutes, 8 minutes to a paper, maybe a 20-minute presentation for a CME talk or something like that. It is important for the speaker to know how long he takes for his presentation. And if you're very, very experienced, normally that it takes about a minute per slide, 1 minute per slide. And so if you have a 20-minute presentation, the maximum number of slides you can have is 25. Some of them may be even less than a minute, a thank you slide and an intro slide and things like that. But the best thing, even for experienced people, is to rehearse the timing. Actually give the talk to yourself. PowerPoint lets you time it. You can start the presentation and ask the PowerPoint to time it and you know how long you have taken. So it's a very simple thing. Checking hardware is important because you might have done your presentation with a set of fonts, which may not be very common, or have videos in it whose particular format is read by your computer, but may not be read by somebody else's computer. So you must check the hardware and always keep a backup. Okay, you may have it on your laptop, but then you find that laptop is misplaced or you don't have a connecting wire or whatever. And so you must have a backup. And I already mentioned about assessing the audience earlier. So it's important that, to me, the stress in this slide is on two things. One, rehearse your timing And second, check the hardware. PowerPoint has an option, many of you I'm sure know it, where you can save in a particular format, you save all the fonts that you have used in that presentation. And so when you take it to another place, if you find that that particular computer which you're using doesn't have the kind of font that you have used, it doesn't matter because the fonts are also saved. And so your presentation will run well. If you do not have it, and by default PowerPoint uses the font that the other computer has, then your formatting may go haywire. It may be bigger, smaller, the lines may overflow into one another, it looks crowded and things like that. The formatting can go bad. And so it's important that you save the fonts along with the presentation that you have. So I'm going to wait here and for a pause here for a bit and ask for your comments and questions.
Sir, I have one query. This is
Yeah.
Sudarshan from Kansas.
Yeah.
So as you said, this points to be saved.
Yeah.
When we put it in another computer, what about changing them into PDF? Because when you convert the slide into PDF, so this also would be like a PowerPoint that you could present.
Yeah.
Would that be a right idea? Or you can also tell us how do we save the point for these fonts?
Okay. At the end of this talk, I will show you these things in real time.
Sure.
Okay. I can show you these things in real time and do it on my computer and share my screen. That'll happen. The big problem with PDF is one, the clarity. Okay, it may not be as clear as a slide looks on a PowerPoint presentation. And second, and more important, even more important, you cannot use multimedia.
Right.
You cannot use videos, you cannot use graphics,
Yes.
you cannot use animations, slide things happen,
True.
Yeah, you saw the arrow come from the left
Yes.
and go up there and things like that, animations.
Right.
And that will not be possible. So I think it's good to just present it with the, save the
PPT.
fonts, and I'll show you how to do that. I'll show you.
Sure. Other question that I have, sir, you said the
Yeah.
presenter usually, what we were told was the presenter should be on the right side so that when he wants to show any point, you can lift your right hand and point out to it actually.
Yeah.
But in the presentation, it is on the left side.
Yeah.
Would that?
This is a recommended thing.
Okay.
What I have shown. And the other important thing is nowadays days are gone when you go to the
Yes.
screen and show something.
Right.
You
Right.
use
Got
either
it.
a pointer and I don't even use a laser pointer. When I give talks in
Yes.
most places, I use the pointer in my screen.
Yes. Yes.
PowerPoint gives you a nice red dot and things like
Yes.
that,
Yes.
which you can, let me see if I can show it to you right now.
Yeah, we know the
Okay.
pen.
Yeah, you know that. Laser pointer.
Yes. Yes.
So you
Yes.
can do this
Right.
on the
Right.
screen. And so
Yes.
I'm working on my computer.
Sure.
So you don't need that at all nowadays. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, Srimati.
Yeah.
So thank you, sir. I think your point on timing is very important because I think if you overshoot, I don't think it's a very good one.
Yeah.
And I think, as you said, sir, there is also this option, no, sir, rehearse with coach.
Yes.
Because it
yes,
obviously
yes.
tells you the intonations, the speed, and everything. Because I
Absolutely.
find that very helpful for me because many a time I tend to really speed up towards the end.
Yeah.
So,
Very true. Very true.
Yes, sir.
So, we get, postgraduate, they start soon after their MBBS and then they have presentations almost every week. They do the presentations themselves. And it's very heartening for us to see them, start very hesitantly. And by the end of 1 year, they become very professional and, very adept presenters. And so it's just a matter of practice and rehearsing and, learning on the job, as it were. Yeah. Okay. If there are
Thank
no
you,
other, no other questions, I'll continue with this. So I just want to give you an overview of how things have evolved over time. These were the days of acetate sheets. That's how we started. We had no computers. We would write with our hand, and if you see, I'm using the same material on the slide. These were acetate sheets, and we were using OHP presentation. It would look like that. And then we became a little more sophisticated. Same acetate sheets, but we were printing it. So it became, you didn't have to worry about your bad handwriting. And then we started getting slides, and slides would have colors. And the colors would usually be one line would have one color. If I asked him to have different colors in the same line, they could do it, but they would struggle to do it. It would cost us more. And so they usually had different colors like that. And now, of course, we have computer presentations where it's so easy to do all these things in such a, an impressive manner as we do. These are flexible. We have said floppies, replace that with pen drives or laptops nowadays, variety of fonts and colors. And the real things are these graphs, special effects, audio and video. Okay. And I can tell you straight away that while these are a big boon when you use it properly, it can be a bane. Sometimes we shouldn't forget that the center of attention of any presentation is the speaker, is the presenter, and the slides that move in and out on the screen are adjuncts. If you have too many effects, particularly in scientific presentations, if you have too many effects, too many of colors, strong colors and videos and noise, audio and things like that, it distracts the audience. It takes the attention away from the presenter. People are all focused on what the drama that's going on the screen, and you've lost the script. And so, even though many things can be done with the computer presentations, with PowerPoint presentation, we must remember that we are the presenters are the center of attention, and what goes on the screen is just an adjunct. It should just give the right amount of stress, importance in what you're trying to say, and that we should never make the presentation take the patient's, the audience's attention away from yourself. That if you have that principle in mind, then you will do your slide design properly. Now, we have done, I'm sure all of us have done many presentations, but I formally went into doing this kind of presentation, as I told you 2 decades ago or even more. In the beginning, I never imagined a slide design would have so many components. Okay, and just think about it. We don't look at it like that. Okay, so the slide has a template, and it has to be sedate and appropriate. Mind you, we're talking about scientific presentations. Okay, it has to be appropriate. It has something, I'm giving you all exaggerated examples. I'm not saying that you design slides like this, but I'm giving you examples of wrong things. Can you imagine the crowded background here, standing alone? This particular picture with all these fireworks is very good. There's absolutely no relevance to the topic. And who will read these things? If I want you to read the points that I'm making here, nobody will be reading it. It's all completely lost in this garish, unacceptable slide template. Okay. The point is, avoid crowding the background. Do not have garish pictures. Definitely do not make sure that they don't mask the text. You can use a dark background and light letters, or equally correctly, you can use a light letter and a dark background. That is also equally acceptable. The fonts must be of good size, must be at least 28 to 44. Remember, you also have to assess the hall and the audience. If you have a very big hall, have bigger fonts. So if you're doing it in a small boardroom, you can have smaller fonts. That's not an issue. I don't know the reason for it, but most people recommend sans serif fonts, which means that a serif is a little bit of extension that you have on the edges of these letters. Serif fonts like Times New Roman is a serif font. That is considered ideal for print media, for your newsletter or a handout or something. But for a slide presentation on a computer, it's recommended that you use a sans serif kind of font, and that includes an Arial or Arial rounded empty bold or things like that. So there excuse me, what I have used here is an Arial empty rounded bold. Graphics have to be, I skipped one bit. I come to the fonts and tell you the kind of wrong fonts that one can use. This is an important rule. On every slide, you must follow the rule of 6, which essentially means that you should not have more than 6 lines to a slide and not more than 6 words to a line. Very, very simple. You should not have too many lines on the slide, should not have too many words in one line. 6, rule of 6. Okay. You can't use very small fonts. Must have inappropriate, not have an inappropriate color. Red is considered a no in presentations. Don't use red at all. And then highlights must be subtle. You cannot have, fancy things like this. These things are very easily available on the net, and you can make these things, PowerPoint. But using such things in a scientific presentation is not acceptable. Graphics have to be relevant and simple. It has to add to the text. It should not take it away from the text. What is even more important, you can have no text at all and have one important big picture that occupies the screen, and then you can talk about it. That, in fact, is one of the best ways, because the audience will see the screen and they have your attention. They want to listen to you to know what you're going to talk about that picture. So if at all you use graphics in addition to your text, it must be very simple. Okay. You can put it into design slots. As you know, PowerPoint gives you little squares where you can put your slots. It can be free form. You can put it anywhere and any size. You can have many clip arts. You can have digitized photographs and scanning. A whole lot of graphics can be used. But then, as I said, again, having a garish and a graphic like I have here, it's just to tell you that such things are a big distraction in a scientific presentation. Again, another example. See what's happening on the screen. Okay. So can one of you, perhaps Samir is there. Can you tell me what are the things wrong with this? It's already there. Are you there, Samir? Hello?
Sir, overlapping and crowding, sir.
Yeah, okay. There is overlapping, there is crowding, and then one more big issue. Irrelevance.
Yes, sir.
Irrelevance. Just I put some bulb somewhere, somebody with a guitar, and that is also, remember, that guitar is incomplete in the sense it's going and hiding somewhere. We don't even know what it is. It came from below. It's useless. So irrelevant, improper overlapping of picture over picture, overlapping over picture over text. And it's crowding. There are too many of them. Just use one little picture, which tells you a lot more than using 3, 4, 5 pictures. Okay, those are the wrong graphics that you should avoid. All right. Color schemes should be sedate. You've seen most of the schemes I've shown you so far are quite garish, and this takes the cake. The kind of dark pink and a wrong red colored thing which doesn't stand out on a pink. So you should have sedate colors, presentations. As I said earlier, avoid red, light green, and pink colors, and the font must contrast the background color. That's a very, very important thing. All right. And you can see this slide itself, how it's sedate. There is a design on the slide. There's a little bit of pattern in the left upper corner. You have a separate color for your title on the slide, and the body text or the body of the slide has a simple white lettering, which is not crowded. You can, of course, count the number of lines and say there's one more than is specified. One of you, I'm sure, would have noticed it. But that is not a big violation. Okay. But if you do have a lot of material, all you have to do is split it into 2 slides. You don't have to have it in 1 slide. It's as simple as that. Transitions. Transitions are a way in which one slide moves on to another. Okay, you may or may not have transitions at all. It may be a simple changeover. If you see PowerPoint, there are so many choices, The slide drops down from above, goes up from below, sweeps to the left, sweeps to the right, splits it into a wheel, and a whole lot of things happen. And you shouldn't use all those fancy things. Okay, I think that may be okay for a sales pitch or something like that. But in scientific presentations, your transitions have to be very simple. If you noticed it, this particular slide from the previous to this slide had no transition. Okay, it's the way each slide appears to the next one. But as I said, Don't use an avoid, don't use a random choice. You can, that option is there in PowerPoint. No, if you choose random, the computer chooses how the slide moves from one slide to another. Do not use it because it's again a distraction. And if you have build effects on the slides, okay, build effect is how each component of a slide comes on to the slide. It may all not be at the same time. Okay, different components may come at different times. So if you have a build effect on a slide, avoid a transition on that slide. To repeat, a transition is the way one slide moves on to the next, the way it appears onto the screen. So if you have put in a transition, make sure that the slide that is coming on the screen either has no or minimal build effects. And build effects, to repeat, is the way different components of a slide come on to the slide. Did you hear something?
Yes, sir.
What did you hear?
Drum sound.
Drum roll sound.
Okay, yeah. See, this is done in PowerPoint. It's all coming from the computer. All right. How, imagine this happening in a scientific presentation. Of course, this is an exaggeration, but you can have other sounds. You can have how you saw how the slide flipped in, flipped in. These are distractions. Not at all good if it's fancy. And as I mentioned, avoid combining transitions and build effects and avoid using sounds. What about build effects? Again, huge array of build effects available in PowerPoint. Have minimal build effects, have it mild, and do not have it fancy. See how these graphics are coming into place. See, if these things happen with your pictures when you make your presentation, nobody's going to listen to you. They're always distracted about what's happening on the screen. Okay, you must have it only for making an impact. Okay, and these are the other interesting things that can happen with PowerPoint. Again, do you think it's good or it's a distraction?
It's a distraction, sir.
Distractions.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Look at this. This can be done in PowerPoint as well. I can tell you for a fact that I have been in presentations where these two things have happened. I have not been in a presentation where somebody put a drum roll. I agree, that was an exaggeration. But I have seen the last two that I did. I've actually seen those on scientific presentations. And so this is not good at all. So if you want it to come, there are certain very simple things. You can make that line flying from the left or flying from the bottom and come there. And then the other interesting that you can do, I have not shown, is when you made the first line and you can make the second line coming from the left or coming from below. And at the same time, you can make the first line go dimmer. It becomes a little more faded. And the new point that comes on the slide is darker, brighter. So that is a simple way in which you can impress upon the audience, say 3 or 4 points on a given slide. Sounds minimal or not at all. And I recommend not at all. I do not think there should be any sounds at all. When I find, presenters come on to conferences and say, look, can I use my computer audio in this? Unless it is a commentary on an operative video, for example, that's one area where you can use sound from the computer. If it's for anything else, it worries me. It worries me that will be a distraction. All right. Okay. You heard that sound? You can hardly hear me talk. I'm talking only to tell you that this is the kind of thing that happens. And so that kind of noise should not be. Okay. Use only short, crisp sounds to draw attention, if at all. And I can tell you for a fact that I've never used any of these sounds on my presentations. So I put across to you all the components of making a slide, and you see that when used properly, the what shall I say, the tricks or the facilities that PowerPoint has is very, very good, but it can be a pain at times. And you must also, as I mentioned earlier, I'm repeating it here because it's very important, watch for mismatch of fonts. And PowerPoint, as you can see, is a very versatile software. It's not at all uh, just a presentation software. We have very nice surgical quizzes designed with PowerPoint, with timing, with scoring, and lots of things. We have teaching modules, and you can even have interactive sessions where I have not used the newer AI features with PowerPoint, but I'm told that it's very fancy and I'm in the process of learning it. I haven't learned it yet, but that makes interactive sessions a lot more easier. Okay, and so I've I've just the next 3 to 4 slides before I complete. I want to show you what else we've actually done and used in the past. And so the other important thing I want to say is that it gets your creative juices going. For those of you, particularly in Sagar group who listen to my talks, you will know that my template is never the same, and it's never what is given in PowerPoint. So I create my own templates. If you're interested, I can show you how I create my own templates. Very easy to do, and always something new, and that keeps me thinking. How can I improve on what I've done in the past, and how can I correct the mistakes I might have done in the past, and things like that. So it definitely keeps my creative juices going, and it's a very nice hobby. It doesn't look like work when I do my PowerPoint presentations on my talks. Excuse me. It doesn't look like work to me. It's like a good hobby, a good pastime.
Dear student, my name is Dr. Lakshman. I'm one of the consultants in this institution, and I'm one of the people responsible for your training in the DNB course here.
Okay. So we have voiceover lectures recorded. This is one important thing. You can put it on the web nowadays. You can put it on YouTube, and people can listen to you. And to me, the greatest advantage is that people don't have to be limited by time, space, and things like that. I can this record. I'm recording this talk now, and it's going to go on YouTube. And somebody else who wants to listen to it at his convenience in the middle of the night, he can use it. He doesn't have to attend my lecture at 4 p.m. on 29th November. It's a great thing. And once the talk is done and, he doesn't understand a bit of it, he can always go back and listen to it again. So this is the kind of terrific, excellent versatility that this has. And so we have lots of lectures on YouTube about what we have done, not just mine, my department, and on surgical topics. And that adds a lot of dimension to a PowerPoint presentation. The next one is using it on quizzes. Okay, and you can even have complex modules. You can have complex modules. And the other big advantage is once you do it on a PowerPoint, all these, ebooks and modules and tutorials and the whole lot can be used in a variety of places. Put it on a standalone PC somewhere in your house, on a laptop, and pen drive. You can take it on intranets. You can put it on the internet. As I said, a lot of our talks are on YouTube now. It doesn't cost any money, and anybody can access it. Anybody can access it. As I said, we have done, standalone quizzes where, using just PowerPoint, we have several questions. I have not gone into the details, but an individual can start the quiz and answer them. And at the end, it gives you a score, and it also tells you where you went wrong and gives you the correct answer. I think it's a terrific way of learning. We even have these what are called teaching modules. These are classic examples of problem-based learning. So we start with a right upper quadrant pane and go off with, if you press each one of these is a link to another little sub module, and you can click on it. And for example, in this, you have a differential diagnosis for right upper quadrant pain, which can be anywhere from basal pleurisy to hepatic abscess to cholecystitis. We discuss the anatomy. We actually, in the history, we have actually recorded a patient's history, recorded a patient undergoing, experiencing a biliary colic. And that particular, straight from the horse's mouth kind of presentation, audio file is given there. And in surgery, we have included our laparoscopic cholecystectomy videos, the whole thing. And then you have a test where questions are asked about what they have learned about right upper quadrant pain, and they can score themselves with it. So if it's some work, it's quite a bit of work doing it for so many conditions. But once you do it, it is very, very useful. It can be used by a lot of people on a lot of occasions. So the possibilities are limitless. You can, as I said, you can be creative and do a lot of things. I think it's important for you to get over the initial inertia, the initial hesitancy that people have in using this PowerPoint as usually a bit scared, but you keep experimenting and learn on the job. It'll be a very, very nice experience. Okay. But no, it's not as if computer presentations have no problems at all. Yeah, like everything else in this world, it has its limitations. Cost, you have to pay for your computer, particularly if you're using videos and graphics, editing them and things like that, you need to have a high-end computer, good resolution monitors to pay for the PowerPoint and things like that. You can have glitches. If you have as simple a thing as a variation in your power voltage or power outage, then you have an issue. There is a learning curve. You have to keep experimenting, as I said. And I've said enough and more about abuse of facilities. This is something I do not buy, but many people say that a computer presentation is impersonal and it's never like you're in a live presentation sitting with your teacher and discussing things with me. I agree with it partially, not completely, because the teacher has to be available. He has to be very good and all of your times must match. But I think if you get over that one initial thing that you need him personally in front of you, you can have interaction with him. The teacher can give you a standalone module. You can sit at home and read up about it. And if you have questions, you can send him an email and he can answer. In fact, all our teaching in Sagar now is mostly done impersonally on a Zoom meeting at 9 p.m. at night. And I don't know, I'll invite my students' comments on it. I do not think they're, missing me sitting next to them and talking to them or anybody else. We have 3-4 teachers in our group. We are all available all the time. Either they call us, send us an email, send us a WhatsApp message, and the issues are sorted out. And so this impersonal thing, I think, is perhaps not a very valid thing. And I have mentioned about software compatibility. Okay, transfer of data of large files is not an issue anymore. It used to be some years ago. Now you have big bandwidth, you have high capacity pen drives. So you can easily transfer large files free of cost. It doesn't even cost, You can send a 2 GB file free of cost over the email. And so these things are not an issue at all. And finally, this is what I love about computers. I don't have to wait for you. I don't have to wait for you for the applause. I can take it myself and be happy. All right. Thank you. Any comments and questions, please?
The comments, the fantastic, sir, actually.
Thank you.
We have learned so many things in the computer. I have one question. So where do you learn all this, sir?
By myself, experimenting.
Experimenting, okay. Do you have
And you just type, Google is a boon. You just sit and Google and say, how do I do this? And it will tell you what to do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
very, very easy. But you have to spend time on it. And it's
True.
my favorite pastime. I keep doing this. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Srimati here.
Yeah.
So what is your thought on this Microsoft 365, which gives you automatic designers, and even in Apple, we have those, sort of already it gives you different, sort of backgrounds and other things, no, sir?
Correct.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, they're very nice. I must say that. But I have personally used them for inspiration. Okay. The reason is very simple. If you want to be unique and have something different, you should have your own inputs. And it keeps you thinking and gives you something to do. As I keep saying, it's my hobby and it's my pastime. So I have no problem. If you have no time to design a slide background, for example, you can use one of those. But many of them, I mean, many of them are designed for business applications, giving a sales talk or something like that. But scientific presentations, there is a wide choice available, but as I said, it's definitely limited than other kinds of templates. And yeah, it's nice to design your own. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
But you
So
can
maybe
Sir,
doing the
certainly,
template is something which we would need to learn.
okay. Yeah.
Sir, I have one
Currently,
comment on this
Yeah.
365.
Yeah.
We have used sir, for a designing, but most of the gel pictures that you put, TCR, it doesn't give you a suggestion. So
Yeah.
we have to present as it is. So I think designing your own way of the way you do
Yeah.
must help us. I think.
Very true. Very true.
so current trend is AI generated presentations.
Yeah.
Like we give the questions, we give what all we're expecting from the PPT, and
Yeah.
it gives an output from which we can build on, not exactly the same presentation.
Right.
Have you tried AI generated out
I
PPT?
have actually. I have really tried several of them, but I didn't like them. Okay. It's not me. You understand? So
Yes. Yes.
over the years, it may be my limitation, it may be my, mindset, old man's mindset maybe, but my presentations are my presentations. It's always been the case from the time I started giving presentations. And,
So,
in AI,
it's basically
go on.
yes, it's basically for the person who doesn't have an clear idea of what they want, sir. Like if you have an idea about what you want and
Yeah,
what AI gives will be a different thing.
yeah,
But when you keep an open mind and otherwise, if you have no idea, then AI would be helpful,
yeah. The
sir.
point, yeah, I mean, that's a very good point you raise. I partially agree with you. But from the time you start giving presentations as a junior person, as a youngster, you have to develop that idea of developing your own thoughts and wanting to say what you want to say. Okay. For example,
Yes.
I'll give you a very practical example. The way you talk about, say, intestinal fistula and the way I talk about intestinal fistula, the basic material will be the same. Both of us are going through the same textbooks and same papers. But the way you say things, the way you add things will be different. Okay, because you are just starting on your career and I'm retiring from my career. And AI doesn't know what it's doing. It gives you somewhere in between. And
Agree, sir.
if you have a knowledgeable audience listening to you as a beginner, and if you say what AI has told you, they will know in no time that it's not your original thoughts. You understand? And so
Yes,
it
yes.
is good that you learn to make your own thoughts, put those thoughts in words. As I keep telling you, when you don't do a copy paste on your slides, many students copy something from a textbook and put it on the slide. That's not the idea at all. You must read the subject, understand it, and put those sentences on the slides, which you have interpreted, which you have understood on the subject. And then, so those slides, those lines on the slides are a reminder to you as to what you have to say about that subject. Okay. And AI takes away that skill from you. And if you keep getting hooked to it, you will never be thinking on those lines. You will just very easily go on to Google or chatbot or whatever, and ask the AI to tell you a few things. You put that on the slide and you talk about it. And I think in that way, AI is actually preventing people from learning properly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the other query I had was many people, so just read from the slide, sir, as you said, because they put everything on the slide and they read from the slide. I think that is also something which we should avoid.
Absolutely to be avoided. That's why if you stick to the rule, which says six lines to a slide and 6 words to a line, you can't read from it. There isn't much. People who read from the slide will have done mostly a copy paste. They would have copied something from a text and put it on the slide. They'll have 15 lines with a whole paragraph. That is the best way to lose your audience. Nobody will be listening to you. So the material that you put on the slide must be a gentle reminder to you as to what you have to say and maintain the continuity. As in the storyboard sequence, one slide must merge on to the next and lead on to the next. So they are only little pointers, bullet points, and nothing more.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
Lakshman,
yeah.
it's how many, I don't know, more than 55 years I'm listening to you. I'm still inspiring.
Thank you.
I'm learning so much from you every time.
You have exposed my age and your age.
Yeah, very nice, very nice.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
thankful to you for this presentation
Yeah,
for all the
thank you.
youngsters.
Thank you. Thank you. Sudarshan, you wanted, I forget, you wanted to see something. How to
Yeah.
save, right?
The font size,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I will share my screen
Yeah.
and show it. It's a 2-minute job.
Yeah.
I'll share my screen.
So how about creating a template, sir? That is also easy, sir.
Very easy. If you have the time, I can show it to you, but we've done for 57 minutes. Yeah, I can show that to you also. Okay.
Yeah,
Show that
please.
to you also.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you're seeing my screen. Okay, you're seeing my screen now.
Yes, yes. We are.
PowerPoint. So you go to file, and then come to the save as option. You're seeing that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you choose the thing you want. Okay, now this is the important thing. Can you guys see this thing called tools here?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, next to the left of the save option is a thing called tools.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then the second item on that is save options.
Yes.
You go to save options, it will come to the last point on that slide. You can see this embed fonts in the file.
Right.
You see embed fonts in the file.
Right.
So it says embed only characters that are used in the presentation. I do not recommend that.
Yeah.
But say embed all characters best for editing by other people, which essentially means that wherever you take this file, you can edit it in that computer, because automatically you might have used 5-10 different fonts in your presentation. All those fonts are also saved.
Right.
And so when you go and you say okay, and then save, okay, of course it's now asking it's already present. So I say okay, replace it. So because I knew that I was not taking this presentation anywhere, it also says if some fonts are not available, it's I'm sorry, it's not available. But it doesn't matter. You say okay, and all those fonts will be saved. And so when you take that present, it will be bigger in size because fonts are also saved. It has more bytes. But in these days of very big pen drives, it won't matter at all. You can take it straight away.
Sir,
Okay.
15 years I'm using computer.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I've seen there's an option of tools.
Sir, but do you think this is a problem, sir? Because nowadays most of the computers are actually, sort of up to date and good.
You never
But
know. You never know, because when you go to many conferences, it depends on the guy who's giving the audio visual support. And
Yes, sir.
sometimes you can have problems.
Okay, sir.
All right. Now, if you have the time, I can show you in 5 minutes how a template can be created. But actually, what I suggest is, if you're really interested, we can have actually a workshop on it.
Yeah, please, sir. We will.
Sometime
I'm-
later,
Yeah, sir.
you know. In fact, Sridhar might probably remember 25 years ago, under the umbrella of IMA, we had a computer workshop where we were teaching.
And the Vaklika Sangha building, 10th floor.
Yeah, exactly. You remember that. Yeah.
How the handout which you are given, I'm still carrying it.
Correct. So we had various modules about how to use, for doctors, how to use Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, and all that kind of a thing. Okay, so we will have on another occasion, we will have a little workshop on how to make PowerPoint presentations. Yeah, we'll do that.
I think every fortnight your slots is booked.
Oh, you want to do that? Sure. I mean, I enjoy this, and yeah, we can do it anytime you're interested on any topic. You're welcome to ask me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Lakshman.
I will
Thank you,
close the
sir. Thank
meeting.
you from all of us. Yes.
Thank you very
Great
much.
learning, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sudarshan,
Thank you.
for giving me the opportunity invitation. So thank you. Learned a
It
lot.
is sir who started this video, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.
Bye, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.